FBI Director Kash Patel says that China may be attacking us with a crazy new fungus. President Trump's allies are on offense to get his legislative agenda passed. Elon Musk is shaming the big spending ways of Congress, and AI bots may have a liberal bias that could shape the world. It's all tonight on the Matt Gaetz Show. Let's do this. We're shaking up Washington, D.C. We're breaking the fever.
You ever watch this guy on television? It's like a machine. He's great. Matt Gaetz.
Good evening. We are on assignment in Washington, D.C. tonight as the fate of President Trump's legislative agenda is battered about the halls of Congress. We've got a key congressman joining us in moments to bring us up to date on the negotiations. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller is a hero to the American right. He has been one of the most forceful defenders of the One Big Beautiful Bill. In a series of tweets this week, Miller said, quote, "It will increase by orders of magnitude the scope, scale, and speed of removing illegal and criminal aliens from the United States. For that reason alone, it is the most essential piece of legislation currently under consideration in the entire Western world in generations." Miller noted the Big Beautiful Bill decreases total spending over the budget window by nearly $2 trillion. And he says the Big Beautiful Bill is not an appropriations bill. It does not fund 99% plus of the government, $0 for Department of Education, $0 for HUD, $0 for EPA, not a cent. It cuts taxes, deports the illegals, and reforms welfare. We could never have dreamed of a bill like this in 2017. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has increased his critique of the legislation. He called it a pork-filled, disgusting abomination that will massively increase the already gigantic budget deficit to $2.5 trillion and burden American citizens with crushingly unsustainable debt. Musk said, quote, "Interest payments already consume 25% of all government revenue." He's right about that. If the massive deficit spending continues, there will only be money for interest payments and nothing else. No Social Security, no medical, no defense, nothing, close quote. Last night, Freedom Caucus Congressman Eric Burlison lamented that Elon hadn't expressed this viewpoint sooner.
Where was Elon when all the pressure was building and we were clearly at the precipice of getting to the point where this bill had to be passed and moved out of the House? It would have been wonderful to have had, Elon chime in. That would have given myself and a lot of the fiscal hawks a lot more leverage to be able to get more out of the bill.
Congressman Burlison believes that as of tonight, the votes are not there to pass President Trump's bill in the Senate. Do you think it has the votes today in the Senate?
Probably not, but we'll see.
So if the votes aren't there now and Trump wants to get the votes, will the bill have to spend less? Probably, in order to get the votes of Rand Paul, Rick Scott, Mike Lee, and Ron Johnson. Those are fantastic senators in our book. But Senators Murkowski, Collins, and Hawley are still not indicating support. They seem to be balking at some of the cuts, so for them, the bill might have to spend more. This is the legislative version of a Chinese finger trap, where pulling in one direction only makes things tighter on the other. Here to help us figure it all out is Tennessee Congressman Andy Ogles. So, Congressman, do you think that there is progress being made in the Senate to get the votes to pass this bill, or are you anticipating that the Senate will make some revision and send it back to the House?
Well, I would say that, from the House perspective, or at least my perspective, it's big. It's not quite beautiful yet. And so maybe this is the opportunity. With Elon coming out, criticizing the bill, maybe we'll see some of the senators make some changes, make some additional cuts, and then likely it'll pass, and then it comes back to us. Now, that'll put a few of my House colleagues in a box, but at the end of the day, that's what we promised the American people.
Have you been in contact with any senators? Are they getting arms twisted by cabinet officials? You know how it goes. You get calls from people in the White House. You get calls from the president and vice president. They seem to be engaging directly in public with some of the folks who they think don't see the bill correctly.
Well, I did speak to a senator earlier, and right now there doesn't seem to be quite a consensus forming in the Senate as what the direction is going to be. So I think it's kind of, what I'll say is Elon, I think, reset the conversation with his most recent tweets, for better or worse. But again, I think the Mike Lees and some of the more conservative senators, that emboldens them to try to get more, again, make it truly big and beautiful, not just big. Because right now it's rather large. But I think there's the opportunity for them to improve the bill, to make some additional cuts. You'll see some of those more conservative senators come online, and then, of course, the House votes on it. But like you said, I don't know that the votes are there if it were to be voted on today as is.
Elon and Trump have come to the House conference before. They've been a unified front. It seems like it's a real pep rally environment with your colleagues when they come. And now you're seeing a bit of a different message out of both of them. Do you think maybe it's just a difference in priorities? You know, for Elon, the priority always really was spending. And for Trump and a lot of his voters, it really was immigration. And that what actually is in tension before us is whether you prioritize spending cuts more than some of the immigration priorities.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was two huge wins in the House version, making the Trump tax cuts permanent. That signals to the markets that this is the landscape that you're going to play in. If you're a small business owner, you want to increase the size or invest in your business, again, you know the landscape, but also foreign investment as well. So it's huge in that regard. And of course, securing the border and deportations. Nashville's been on the news because of deportations, and we're fighting that fight. But like you said, Elon's, you know, he headed Doge, he started Doge, creates a legacy of cutting or finding ways to cut. So there's a difference of priorities, but at the end of the day, I think there's the opportunity to get those two things to align. It's going to take some work, but that's why we were elected to this job.
You brought me right to my next question. You're leading an investigation into the Nashville mayor for some of the open borders policies there. What is the behavior you hope to change with this investigation?
Well, I mean, look, ICE has been clear. Kristi Noem has been clear. You don't have to agree with ICE. You don't have to help ICE when they come to your community, but you can't interfere. And what we're seeing or have seen in cities across the country, including Nashville, is that there's an interference. And so now you have the Metro Police Department, the fire department, and public works officials are supposed to snitch on ICE whenever they're in Nashville. And then that's being reported on the city's website in almost real time. Then the city mayor docks the federal agents. So I went to the chairman of Homeland Security and the chairman of Judiciary, and we're going to do a joint investigation into the mayor of Nashville. But I think there's the opportunity.
Don't you think the mayor should have to testify before your committee?
Before the committee, but then also there's other mayors across the country that need to be held accountable. When you're putting law enforcement, federal law enforcement, their life at risk, you cross the line and there should be some accountability.
Speaking of life at risk, I did not believe when I knew we were going to talk today that we would be talking about a China fungus. But here we find ourselves. Based on any information you have so far, do you think this is an intentional act by the Chinese government?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for the Chinese government, and I've been an outspoken critic of the CCP and an advocate for Taiwan. But that being said, is this individual, he's a researcher. He knew what he had. He brought it illegally into the country on his phone, and it was hidden, right? It was like wadded up in tissue, tucked in a book. And then on his phone, after further investigation, there was an article dating back to like 2018 on biological warfare. So this guy, I mean, look, follow the facts. Let there be an investigation. To me, it looks criminal, and he should be prosecuted. And quite frankly, there's a whole host of folks from China here whose visas should be revoked.
Yeah, should we rethink allowing our research university labs to be used by some of these students that are constantly coming back and forth from China?
Well, during the Cold War, we weren't giving visas to Russian students. So why are we giving visas to Chinese students when we know China is the enemy? We saw it during COVID. They choked off the supply chain. We now have biological weapons. They're constantly trying to hack us. So why are we enabling the enemy that's trying to bring us down? Again, during the Cold War, we didn't do this for Russia. Why would we do this for China?
You mentioned Russia. We've got the escalation of tensions in this conflict. President Trump just announcing that he had a productive call with Putin, but that he is anticipating some sort of Russian response to this Ukrainian drone attack. Where do you see that conflict going, and what steps can Congress take to align with President Trump and try to bring it to an end?
So I was part of a delegation a few weeks ago that went to Europe, met with members of the European Parliament, also met with members of the Moldovan Parliament. And I've long said since that trip, I say long said, a few weeks ago, that there would be no peace in Ukraine until after the Moldovan elections. So there's a faction within Moldova that's very pro-Russian. And so if they can win the Moldovan elections, that'll open up another flank for Russia into the Ukraine war. And so until that is reconciled, and we've seen in the Romanian Moldovan elections historically Russian interference. So they have no motive to settle peace or to negotiate peace.
So are we just destined to more death and more war for months?
Late summer, early fall is the Moldovan elections, and nothing's going to happen, in my opinion, until after those elections. If Russia loses in the Moldovan elections, then they'll come to the table for negotiations. If they win, which they just prevailed in the Romanian elections, I think it spells trouble for Ukraine and the fact that there'll be an additional flank.
Congressman Andy Ogles, thanks as always for coming on the program and sharing your expertise on a wide array of subjects that seem to be in the news today.